Shalom, this is Reb Yoseph Schreiber coming to you from the land of Israel. This week's is Parshas Emor, and a part of the Parsha is a listing of, shall we say, the Jewish holidays and their distinctive observances. Okay? It includes the holiday of Shavuos, and it's a little bit different with Shavuos in that it really starts on the second day of Pesach, or more precisely with the counting of the Omer. What the Chumash says is that on the day after Pesach, meaning the first day of Yom Tov, the children of Israel are to harvest an omer of grain and bring it to the temple as a sacrifice. Now, Pesach's basic message is that of the Exodus from Egypt. Shavuos, its basic message, according to the Chumash, is the bringing of the first fruits of the land. Now, you can make all sorts of connections between the two of them, but the bridge between them, basically, this is from the Chumash, is that Pesach starts with spring. Without going into the mechanics of the calendar, the first of Nisan, shall we say, is the first day of spring. Pesach would be the 15th of spring, more or less the beginning of February, of April. And it's the time when your grains begin to ripen. Things like wheat and barley and oats and rye will start growing, and they grow very rapidly. At the end of winter, they start growing after the coldest day of the year. Spring starts with the day of equal day and equal night, same amount of hours, 12 hours of each. Winter starts with the shortest day of the year, the wobble of the earth. So there's actually like a time difference between the world actually cools down or warms up. It comes out by early spring. The grains are basically golden. They've started to dry, and this is the time when you harvest them. So what they will do with great ceremony is harvest an omer of barley and bring it to the temple, and they will have sacrifices. Really, it's a modest sacrifice of one sheep with the condiments that come with it. An omer is a sheath. What it is when you cut grain is basically like a long grass. And you cut it at close to the ground, and it might be, I don't know, a foot and a half, 2 feet high. And the top of it is the flowers and the fruit, which contain the seeds. The seeds are the grain, which are going to be later on milled into flour, which will produce bread. In the case of the omer, what they do is they just simply tie up one of these small bundles and bring it to the temple and burn it on the altar, so to speak, give it to God. It's waved as if to say, we have successfully produced grain. It's like you finally got a working prototype. That's the basic idea. What happened? Also before I continue, an ephah, it's an omer is also a measure of a dry measure. It's about 2.5 quarts, 2.5 liters. It's enough to make a nice loaf of bread. So it's a nice quantity. It's not very large. It's not very small. It's the ideal quantity for one nice loaf of bread. After that, the children of Israel are commanded to count 50 days, or more, not really 50 days, 7 weeks in the 7 days in them. And on the 50th day, they are to bring 2 loaves of bread to the temple made from the new grain crop. And they also bring 7 sheep and a bull and 2 goats as burnt offerings. They also have a ram as a chatas, a sin offering, so to speak, for apologies. And they also have 2 sheep for a peace offering that basically comes down to a sacrificial dinner. That's what it is. In both the Omer and the again, with the Shnei Lechem, the priest waves them. He makes a point of publicizing them. Yes, we got grain. Yes, we made it into bread. Okay, and before the first grain is brought to the temple, it's forbidden to make use of the new crop. Okay? The idea is that you can't jump the gun. Okay? Even though some of it may be ripened a little bit early, you still can't use it. In the case of the 2 loaves of bread, after they are brought, then you use the new grain, the new crop, to bring offerings to the temple. When you want to offer a grain offering, it comes from the new crop. The idea is that the old crop has basically been exhausted and now you use the new stuff. Okay, so and also the 50th day is declared a holiday. You are not permitted to go into work. So it's when the people actually bring the 2 loaves of bread, it's a major celebration. It's a national holiday. Okay? So what the Chumash, though, is also teaching us is how to relate to long-range projects. The idea of 7 is the idea of creativity. God created the world in 6 days and he rested on the 7th. He started on the first day with the heaven and the earth, and then he made light and plants and animals and man. 7th day he had a holiday. Okay, in this case, 49 days or 7 weeks. We bring this omer, which is just cut your cut grain, your plants, and you take the seeds off and you mill them into flour, and on the 50th day you bake it into bread. Okay? Now you have different long-range projects, building a shul, building a house, and this is hinting at how to relate to them. That you have a formulative stage, say when you're looking at blueprints and raising the money, and then you'll have like a groundbreak in the day that the builders start building the foundation. And on that day, you feel good. It's just, you might have a celebration. If you're building a shul, you might have a rabbi get up and give a speech and have light refreshments. You're actually starting to build. You've done all the preparations. Now it's going into action. That's the new thing. It's going into action. The idea of the 7 weeks is the idea of a reasonable time period. If you're going to be making flour in the course of 7 weeks, you're not being rushed and you're not being a laggard or lazy either. It's a reasonable amount of time. And what that means is that when we're doing construction already, a sort of project, we have to have the idea of time involved, that we shouldn't take a very long time. On the other hand, we shouldn't be rushing. We're talking about under ideal situations. When the project is completed, then you have a big celebration. The idea of a formal ribbon cutting, where not only do you have the rabbi, he speaks, the idea for Purim is a Shavuos, literally means weeks, is that you have 7 sheep, suggesting that you have 7 speeches or a number of speeches. You also bring a bull, which would be the idea of having a long and elegant speech. And you also bring goats, rams. I have other types of speeches. The idea is that it's elaborate. It adds a chatas. The idea of a chatas, a sin offering, also a goat. I think it's a seer, a baby goat in this case, or a young goat, is the idea of a speech of apologies. In some cases, this is a formal part of a celebration. In it, you say the things that you clear the air by acknowledging things that did not go precisely according to plan, and hopes that were not realized, and you apologize for them. Very rarely everything goes perfect, and this is the time to clear the air in the proper way to do it about these things. That's the chatas. You then have a formal dinner. Now, this is where you're talking about a meat meal with bread. Okay, it's a nice meal where everybody is invited. The idea of waiving it and making it a holiday is that everybody comes, not just a few people. And the idea of, again, of waiving it is the idea of publicizing it. This would be the time that you make pictures and you write articles and you invite the media and you let the community know that you have completed your project. And the idea of not eating the grain before its appointed time is the idea is that you shouldn't be using this thing when it's half constructed. When it's all done, you start using it. And the idea of the bread after the bread you use the new crop is the idea that you finally have this product has gone into production and it's available to all. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.